As we're almost into Halloween, Vanessa and I thought it would be fun to share some tales about the pagan holiday. When I was looking for something different, I found a legend about an aboriginal demon called Yara-ma-yha-who. He's a really fun character, and even though I looked and looked, I haven't found the actual tales the aboriginal elders tell the young, but I did find a lot of descriptions about this crafty hunter of human blood and flesh. And even though it's not told in the traditional fashion, it's told very lyrically and beautifully. So I think you're really going to like this inside look at an Aboriginal sprite, a goblin, a devil incarnate, and share it with your children, your students, your friends, because it's so different and so fun in a really grotesque way. The Aboriginals of Australia have a vast number of legends and myths and folklore stories. They take so much delight in telling stories to the younger members of the tribes, and these are handed down orally for thousands of years. And it's very hard actually to find those stories because they're so special to the Aboriginal people. And the mothers and the elders of the tribe tell these stories with a great deal of gestures. I'm going to tell it with my own, not intentionally, but just because my hands always seem to move because I get so excited about these stories. You ready? The Yara-ma-yha-who. Okay, the Yara-ma-yha-who. Decide which is the weirdest, the strangest, the part you like the most, the part you could do without. Here we go. There were many strange beings who lived a long while ago, many, many years before the white man came to Australia. Among these were a queer little red man. Now this little red man was an exceptionally funny fellow. He stood about 4 feet high and he had a very big head for such a small body. In fact, the biggest parts of him were his mouth, his throat, and his stomach. But he had no teeth in his jaws, and he would simply swallow his food. The strangest part of all of this was that this little fellow would swallow an ordinary man, such as you see in the present day down the street, or in any town or cities. His head was something like a snake's, and he would open his mouth just as a snake does. These little people did not hunt their food or make spears, nula-nulas, or boomerangs like their bigger brother, man, but they were in possession of a queer hand. The points of their fingers were cup-shaped, like the suckers of the octopus, and so also were the tips of their toes. They lived mostly in thick, leafy trees. They preferred the wild fig tree. The reason for this was that during the summer months, men, women, and children would often come and seek shelter under the trees from the burning rays of the sun. And in winter, they would be protected by the thick boughs from rain and hail. That was why these little men, the Yara-ma-yha-who, chose to live after this fashion because it saved them the trouble of going to hunt for their food. Now, if a little boy happened to be alone, he fell an easy prey to a Yara-ma-yha-who. Therefore, everybody dreaded the queer little fellows and would often go out of their way to seek shelter and safety in caves or under ledges of a rock on the mountainside. The Yara-ma-yha-who pounces upon a person as a cat does upon a mouse, only in this case the hunter is smaller than his prey. When he springs upon his victim and captures him, he places his hands and feet upon the body. The suckers on these drain the blood from the victim, and he is left helpless upon the ground. The Yara-ma-yha-who does not try to suck all the blood from the body, but leaves sufficient to keep the victim alive while he walks around and gets an appetite again. Then he returns and lies down on the ground facing his victim and crawls like a goanna and opens his mouth wide and sucks his prey into his mouth head first. He then rises and stands on his little legs and dances round until the prey is well inside his stomach. Then he goes way to a river or a pool of water and drinks copiously, and afterwards goes to some valley nearby and lies down and goes to sleep. When he wakes, he vomits the remains of his recent meal. In all probability, the victim is still alive, but he lies upon the ground, feigning death. The Yara-ma-yha-who stands beside him and then walks away for a short distance, say about 5 paces, and suddenly turns round, walks back and pokes the victim in the side with a stick to see whether he's alive. If the person shows no sign of life, the Yara-ma-yha-who again walks away about 10 paces, turns around suddenly, goes back to the side of the victim, and this time tickles him under the neck or the arm. If the person still shows no signs of life, the Yara-ma-yha-who repeats this. Getting no response, he goes still farther away, say about 50 yards, and comes back a third time and tickles his victim, and then goes away and sits beside a bush watching. Now, all the children are taught that if they should happen to be captured by this Yara-ma-yha-who, they should offer no resistance, because they have a better chance of escape if they allow the Yara-ma-yha-who to swallow and vomit them, as has been its custom from time immemorial. Should the Yara-ma-yha-who fail to do this, then the spirit of the wild fig tree would kill him by entering into his head through his ear and causing a mumbling noise, ending with intense silence, so that the spirit would leave the rude body and become a cold fungus that grows upon the trees and sheds a dull glow at night. The Yara-ma-yha-who, after vomiting, seeks a bush and lies down to rest and sleeps soundly. The victim takes this opportunity to run away. Should the Yara-ma-yha-who hear the running feet, he would rise very suddenly and give chase, shouting all the while, "Which way hast thou gone, my victim, my victim?" One advantage that the victim has is that the Yara-ma-yha-who, who is not able to run very fast, but instead has a wobbling style of walking, like the cockatoo, can't catch up. If the Yara-ma-yha-who should fail to recapture his prey, he would go away where there were rock holes or water holes and drink up all the water. This he would do to deprive the people of their water supply. The people would then go in search of the wild apple tree and strip the bark, and sometimes the water would come forth from a cavity between the bark and the trunk of the tree. Now this would give the Yara-ma-yha-who another opportunity to capture a person, because he was more able to seize his prey by attacking it at a tree with the thick boughs than attempting to do so on the ground. If the person were caught and swallowed again, he would become shorter in stature. If swallowed a third time, he would become still shorter until at last he would resemble the Yara-ma-yha-who. Only in the first stage of the transformation, the victim's skin would become very smooth with a visible sign of hair on body or head. It would remain thus for a short time, and then long hair would begin to cover the body thickly indeed, and in this way the victims would gradually change from ordinary human beings into the little mythical beings that roam about in the dense forest along the coast of the Pacific Ocean, the Yara-ma-yha-who. Are you scared of going out into the bush? This would give me pause. What do you think? I've shown you some pictures of this mythical creature, and hopefully you enjoyed it. You're going to share it with your friends, children, students, whatever, to get word out of the crazy dangerous Yara-ma-yha-who of the Aboriginals.